everything is clout right now. There's a lot of kids that are willing to go. The line is right here. There's kids all the way over there. Like, I'm gonna push this to the limit because I know I could get the most likes from that. There's a bigger need right now. I was having this conversation with Snoop of just OGs really putting their arm around kids and like, yo, look, like just really having these real conversations with them before it gets to be too late.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Rob Markman. Now, this week, we have some serious things to discuss. As you all know, you've seen, you're reading the headlines, you haven't been under a rock, you've been on Genius, so you know. Rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine has been arrested. He is currently sitting in jail. He was charged and indicted on racketeering and firearm charges right on the eve of the release of his Dummy Boy album. We've seen the controversies played out. We've seen the music hit the charts. And it really begs this question about hip-hop's relationship with the streets. What does this all mean? Where does Tekashi go from here? Can he get out of this? Should he get out of this? What does this mean for the music? We have a whole lot of questions. And I assembled a panel of some pretty dope people, man, that I wanted to come and speak about this. First up, we have my man Kevin Childs, founder of Don Diva. Honestly, I think one of the most important publications when we talk about hip hop in the streets. You guys are really experts. Kevin, man, thank you for being here with us.
Appreciate you having us.
Nah, man. Gray Rizzy, host of We Out Here on Shade 45, and you're on Hip Hop Nation on Sirius XM. You just running these radio waves, man. And I know you see the headlines. I know you play the music, and we wanted to have you here to discuss that.
Thanks for having me back.
Nah, no doubt, man. And Nyla Simone, DJ Nyla Simone on Power 105. You out here in these clubs, you out on the radio, you spinning the records, you see the impact of the music. You've seen Tekashi's rise really from kind of an underground New York thing to this worldwide phenomenon. So we're definitely blessed to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Nah, man, thank you for coming. I just want to get into some things. Tekashi, so he pled not guilty and he was denied bail. His trial is coming up in September 2019. And, you know, presumably he'll stay in jail the whole time unless he's granted bail. Kevin, I want to start with you because I think there's been a lot of talk about Tekashi 6ix9ine, about this arrest, these charges, and what it all means. Don Diva, again, very street focused, music focused, and kind of talks about the marriage between the two. And I love it because it's not like your publication glorifies the streets. A lot of it is cautionary tales.
Absolutely.
And educational. I just want to get your read on this situation coming from, you know, your point of view.
It's a very serious situation. It's an unfortunate situation for him because I realize that he's an entertainer, and probably part of what he was doing, or for the most part, his thinking was that he was entertaining, and I believe that. Like, you know, I don't think I've seen several of the interviews with the kid, and I get from him that he's a good kid. You know, generally, I don't get where he's a gangster or that's what he desires to be. But the situation that he's in is a very serious situation. And him being 22, I don't think he even understands the levity of the situation just yet. I think he's just starting to probably get a sense of what's really going on.
Can you explain for us? Because in the headlines, we've seen that he's facing RICO charges and racketeering charges. And me thinking back to it, if I didn't know no better, I think about old mob flicks, like, oh, he's running the rackets or something like that. It's a term that you don't hear every day.
Absolutely.
So RICO, racketeering, like, what's going on? What is he actually being charged with?
Well, what RICO represents is an organization, and there's different facets of it. Tekashi being the musical component of it, then there are other guys that may not even be music related. It may be guys that are just treyway that have committed crimes, attempt murders, selling narcotics. But because he's under the guise of this organization, he becomes a component of it because, you know, they're all running around saying the same thing. So even though he may not necessarily act in a capacity himself, he's still considered part of the conspiracy or the organization. So he's held liable. And the way the charge is a mandatory minimum of 10 years. That means, like, the lessest participant in it could respectively receive a minimum of 10 years, even if they weren't the one who maybe there was a murder committed and they didn't pull the trigger, or if narcotics is being sold on the corner and they didn't participate in selling narcotics. But if you're a part of the organization, it's a way to, like, group a bunch of individuals together and charge them with a RICO.
Right. Great. I know you've been paying attention to this for, you know, a minute. Like, you know, I feel like 18 months, like, really was like the rise of Tekashi. And we've seen things like we've seen just in September, they raided his house, found an AR-15. There was the shooting at Barclays, the various rap beefs, be it with Casanova, which they since made peace, or YG out on the West Coast. We've seen kind of the very serious things, the very entertainment things, and the very flagrant things play out. When he was arrested, were you surprised when this all came down? Was this something that you kind of saw building?
I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at all. I kind of just, first of all, I respect Kevin for a lot, for everything that he's done outside of Don Diva and everything before that. But I respectfully disagree with you as well, because I mean, he's 22 years old. He's a grown man. He might not have understood the full how the RICO works, but all of us that have grown up in this city and cities around the world, you know those 4 letters, you stay away from it. You know, like RICO, you don't want to be caught up with it. For him to be in the mix of everything that's going on, I'm not saying he knew exactly what was going on, but he had to know it was Icarus. He was getting closer and closer to that fire, and he was about to get burned. You have so many different OGs that was coming up to him. The most popular one was when they saw, what was it, Fat Joe. And he's telling him, like, look, I've been in this situation. I've seen this story before. We've all seen this story before. Over the last 18 months, we've all been saying the same thing to him. There's 3 things that's going to happen. You either go to chill, you're going to end up in jail, or you're going to end up dead. So am I surprised? I'm not surprised. I'm glad it's the lesser of the evils. He's in jail right now versus being on the other side of his demise. But he has a hell of a that's one thing I do agree with him on, Kevin on. He has a hell of an uphill battle. And he probably sitting down right now thinking, oh shit, how am I going to get out of this?
Can I chime in just right
Yes,
quick?
absolutely.
The part that you don't disagree with me about is like I have a personal experience. I remember being that age myself and having the kind of money that he had, and money is all powering. Like, you know, you feel invincible. You feel like it's nothing you can't do. Yeah. So the first time he got out of trouble because it was a slap on the wrist, the next time he hired an attorney and he did this, at some point he started thinking that he was invincible. And we're not talking about a kid who grew up in with parents or some area or surrounded with some. When you're saying his OGs, I think they may have very well been exploiting the kid.
Not his OGs. There were OGs.
No, yeah, Charlemagne the God gave him great advice. So yeah. Quite a number of people did, but you just become almost like ignorant to what people say because you're like, listen, I got more money than you. What can you tell me?
Kevin, but this is the thing that I disagree with you on that. You are the example.
Yeah, I'm not defending him.
You know,
I wish he got it.
And that's it. And if anything, I think that's what frustrates a lot of us. Maybe everybody that's on this panel, a lot of people who are actually rooting for him.
I agree.
Because what he represents was a way out. Like, oh,
Absolutely.
shoot, he could turn something out of nothing into something very, very big.
But I don't think he wasn't taking everybody's advice like he did. He tried to distance himself. He fired everybody that
he did that
was
like 24 hours before the situation happened.
You know what that tells me, Nala? That tells me he knew something
right,
was coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what that tells me.
Of course he knew something was coming. First of all, the feds they had a warrant or whatever. He went in his house and found the AR-15.
He wasn't home. He was out the country at the time.
They were around him. I feel like he was getting information. You know, they say that they informed him the day after his Breakfast Club interview that there was a hit out for him. So it seemed like they were reaching out and giving him ways to maybe get out of it. Me and Kevin talked about this off air, that the feds reaching out and giving him ways to get out of it, maybe for him to cooperate.
Yeah.
So it seems like let's get into that too. The whole snitch thing right now, the whole cooperation thing. Is that the read for you? Is the pressure that they were putting on him was to turn on the rest of the trainway?
That's absolutely what they were doing in regards to that. The question becomes at this point is, I'm sure he's contemplating what he's going to do. He's newly rich. Mm-hmm. He's 22 years old, and the severity of this is anywhere from, like I said, from 10 years to life. And I don't think he's really a street guy. And most street guys aren't going to stand up under that. You know, the feds aren't who they are just because. You know, right. This is psychological. It's strategic, and he has some very serious choices and decisions that he needs to make. And you know, I'm not going to predict what he's going to do, but society has pretty much done at this point. Like, you know, it's not too many people doing time in the era that we live in now. So that's not to say that he will do something else. some people might consider him a fool to be morally sound and do what, the situation he got himself in, to stand by that and whatever comes with that, whatever punishment to do that. I mean, he's an entertainer. Right. He's making a lot of money, and I don't even think he's had an opportunity to even enjoy the money thus far.
Now let's talk about this again, because you're out here playing these records. I mean, you represent a very the generation that's really coming up with them. And a lot of times I want to give you credit because you're the DJ that puts other DJs on to what's coming on. You kind of start the wave. With Tekashi and balancing the music and the streets, do music fans have the same morals? Kevin talks about these, not cooperating, standing up, taking the time. Does that matter to his fans these days?
Yeah, well, I think something we had to take into account is that Tekashi's fans, like real fan base, are the people that's on YouTube, that's like searching the online all day. And those are like kids from ages 10 to 18. That's his core demographic right there. So not saying that you said 10 years would be like the smallest amount that he gets. So if he gets out in 10 years, his fans would be 20. Like, not saying I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, like, I think he'll be okay. Like, I don't think this would be the end for Tekashi. I really don't. But I think this is a huge L he's taking.
Okay, so how do the fans play into it? And because he's doing very gangster things, right? And his lawyer has said, hey, he's an entertainer, he's not a gangster.
Yeah.
So this is the fence that they're setting up.
Yeah.
But he's portraying a gangster thing, and the fans are very much eating into it. How much does that matter? Like, because he comes out, he can't go back to yelling Treyway on Instagram and tell him YG, the things that he tells him.
Yeah, well, kids' values are different than those who actually came from that street life. And even people my age, 23, 20s, just values are different than they were, when like NWA was hot, like when you said things back then, it really meant something. Where now you can say something like "suck my whatever," and people just roll off the shoulder with it.
Well, off certain people, it rolls off certain people back. It obviously didn't roll off YG back. It didn't roll off Slim 400 back.
But if you go into a high school, I guarantee you it'll be kids saying that back and forth, like on some kiki ha ha.
I think if two people are, they're playing around and stuff, but most men don't invite other men to their genital area. That's number one.
There's a way to play to do that?
Huh?
There's a way to play and do that?
No, I'm saying most men don't do that.
Okay. Yeah, right.
But if you do play around like that, maybe it is in that high school setting. But in this particular setting right here, I think he was very unconventional. Tekashi knew how to press buttons. You can agree with that, right? He knew how to press buttons. He knew how to get under people's skin. He knew how, you said something while we were off air. He really knew how to work the internet to his advantage, right?
Trolling king.
He definitely is the trolling king. Mm-hmm. But his unconventional ways, now you're talking about jail time, you're sitting, you're talking to lawyers, you're talking to judges, DAs, all these people, U.S. district attorneys, not state. Now it's like, oh shoot, what do I do? Are you supposed to have the morals now? Are you supposed to sit there like a real G and be like, nope, you know what, I'm not gonna say anything? These are the things that everybody's asking questions. How are you gonna handle this?
But he didn't have when he's doing it, it's not, when he tells people to suck he's not even saying it like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like back in the day when you'd be like, your mother, like on House Party, that scene, you'd be like, your mother, and they like,
I think you're giving him a pass.
I'm not giving him a pass. I'm
in the manner in which he's
because he didn't back down. And then when they was like, yo, did you just say that? And
then he had your mother lips to it.
Yeah, I don't know how disrespectful I can get.
That's even worse.
Let's talk about. I want to get into two sides of this, but the music side. So the album. This was right before the album was supposed to come out. The album didn't come out, but ended up leaking, and now they're saying they're gonna put it on streaming. Have we heard the album?
Yeah.
Have you guys heard the album? What musically? What did you take away from it? Like.
I could tell you straight up, I wasn't the biggest fan of 6ix9ine's music, right? Of course, I've been listening to it because you have no choice. Everybody wants to hear it. But I thought this album was going to set him up for a whole lot of people to open their eyes, like, oh, this is actually okay. Like we could do something with this. I did notice in the album he was starting, even though there were songs that we've already heard like Fifi, there was songs that he had with Tory and with Kanye where he's stepping away from saying Treyway. No, we can't say that on here.
Well, right, they were purposely like Tory
was
on
a
the song
joke.
with Tory.
Yeah.
He's like, no, we can't say it.
Everything with
So
a
he was
T.
like, it's Target, it's
Yeah.
Trojans. Like they started making a joke of it, but
Right.
they pulled back from saying it's Treyway.
Right.
So
I thought
at
that
what
was-
point did he start recording this music?
Right.
It also goes back to saying, when was this separation really happening? Because we also remember that he was robbed. He claimed to have been robbed
Kidnapped.
on an inside job and kidnapped,
Claimed.
and they took his, but you can't tell with this, everything is kind of for show in front of Instagram. So nobody really quite knows what's real. But we know that there was problems within the camp leading up to it. So now on this big album release that has some of the biggest music stars like Kanye West and Nicki Minaj, the thing that he hollered 8 days out the week, Treyway, on this album, he's not saying anymore.
Yeah,
It's
they-
kind of
but-
interesting.
But didn't he have a court appearance like pretty close to the release of his album where it was understood that he had to disassociate himself? That was part of his
in October.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that may have had something to do with it too, all depending on
That's
when
when
the
he
songs were
first started
recorded.
dissing himself, by the way.
Right.
So that was
Distancing himself.
a
from that.
month prior.
Okay. Well, what did you think about the music? I want to know from a DJ's perspective. Like, is the music enough to he may have to sit down for a while and not come out. We talk about in the history of hip hop, right? We've seen there used to be this old narrative that jail made you hot. And we saw Tupac go to jail and get a #1 album. We've seen Wayne, sit down for a year and come out and do the Carter 3. T.I., Gucci Man, Shine. It's worked or hasn't worked to varying degrees. The question I have for you as a DJ is the music strong enough that if Tekashi does have to do time, that he could still have a music career after all of this?
That's interesting. I think all the artists you just named prior, though, their music was already solidified and hot. And then they came out and then they became stars, where he's already got the star power, and now it's time for his music to speak. So I think his situation's kind of like just a tad bit different, like kind of reverse. But I think I like the album. I know kids that really love his music. Like that song Stupid is going crazy right now. Everybody wants to hit the dance. Like longevity though, I don't even think music comes and goes so fast and everything's consumed. So 10 years, we could be on to a whole new, like hip hop might not even be the main genre. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Kevin, I mean, again, Don Diva, and again, I just want to salute, back when I first started my career as a writer, when the Source XXL Vibe would only let me do album reviews in the back, Don Diva was assigning me cover stories. So I was getting my biggest kind of interviews, my biggest projects through Don Diva, and learned a lot, writing for that magazine. Kev, through the years, you guys have documented this balance. A lot of incarcerated rappers, you paid very close attention to. That myth that jail makes you hot as an artist, is that a myth? Is that a real thing?
I think it was perpetuated from street credibility. And I think it's stated, I don't even know if that matters so much more in music now. I don't even know if people listen to the lyrics at this point. I do know there are a group of individuals that still, and not even so much for street credibility, it's just about morals and integrity. Like it has nothing to do with street credibility, it's just about the way you live your life. It just so happens that being an entertainer or being in some sort of system where you need to assign that to be something unique, people attach that to that. So I honestly don't know whether or not it matters at this point in music, because you figured during that time you had artists like you had Rough Riders and you had DMX's and you had Ja Rules and then you had 50s and then you had Jay-Z's and then you had Nas's and you had all of those kind of people who was propelling that mentality and mindset. I don't necessarily know if music is deriving from that place right now. I'm not certain, and they would probably be better to state if they think that's even a component of it at this point.
Right. You want to weigh in?
I'm not really sure. You know, there's been a lot of things that have changed over the years, and what he's saying is exactly right. You know, when you had a lot of people, this was for so many different people who couldn't pick up a basketball and make a hoop or dunk. Like hip hop represented a way out. How am I going to take what I used to do over here, tell the story, be the newscaster, but then profit from it in such a way that's going to set me up to make the jump into something that's legal, so I can live my life the right way without having to have my head on a swivel. Nowadays, we don't know what's live, we don't know what's Memorex. And for the people who don't know what that means, we don't know what's live and we don't know what's fake.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff that's going out there right now. I know I'm not the only one. When I saw him walk away from his team, I said, is this because the album's coming out? Is this real?
Right.
You feel what I'm saying?
Even with the robbery that preceded that.
Yeah,
Right,
even with
right.
that. Like a lot of us question that, and it's messed up that we're questioning, damn, he got kidnapped. You know, they possibly held him at gunpoint and all this stuff. Again, you're talking all of this, but there's so much stuff going on right now. You're just like, do I believe it? Don't I believe it? Almost to the point where you're like, it's the cry who, you know, it's the wolf that the girl who cried wolf.
Right.
I don't want to say he's a girl. I'm just saying like, yo, he's doing all this extraness.
Right.
What do I believe at this point?
Let me ask you, Bobby Shmurda, locked up as well, and what are the similarities and differences? Because you know, it seems like Shmurda is a different thing. I want to give a shout out to OK Player. I just want to read this. Andre G over at OK Player, man. Shout out to y'all. Y'all do great work over there. Bobby's story was a classic case of growing up in a predicament where he felt he had no options but to gangbang. But 6ix9ine assumed his hood Suicide Squad persona in the bid to merely feign alliances with the gang, inciting violence to further his own agenda of fame. Bobby couldn't escape the trap, but 6ix9ine's fervor for the clout lured him to it. That's just his opinion. So basically, that, you know, 6ix9ine, Shmurda didn't have very many options, and you know, where it looks like 6ix9ine maybe ran to it. Is that a fair assessment?
I'll keep mine short. I think it is fair. I think it was two differences.
Right.
I think you had on one side with Bobby Shmurda, hot nigga just took off. And it's like you're trying to catch up. Like, what do we do? Or how does this go? What do we do in this instance? Oh, this is an interview? You know, it was a lot of things like that. And we all saw parts of that. With this right here, a lot of it was calculated. You don't end up in somebody's bed with somebody's ex-girlfriend saying, yo, look at this, without it, you thinking, oh, how do we do this? How do we record this? And I'm talking about when he was in with Trippie Redd's ex-girlfriend, which I thought was funny, but at the same time, you thought that out. And he had a bunch of different things in that, you know, in that very vein. So I think they're very different. And I just think 6ix9ine had a runway to say, all right, let me get off this. Let me go with this.
It was very much calculated, right? Because also him going to O Block in Chicago and knowing he had beef out there, but later admitting he was like, yeah, I was there for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Did the quick video at 4
I'm
o'clock
there
in
to
the morning when
entertain
nobody's
you. I'm
around.
not there to get killed. You know,
Right.
like
Right.
he knew a lot of stuff that was going on.
Tekashi is a trolling marketing genius.
That's a fact.
So that's the difference between Tekashi and Bobby, where Bobby is a street dude. But like you said before, people who didn't play basketball use music as a way to get out. So Tekashi did too. He used that same formula, even though he faked it. And I don't want to sound like I'm like, you know, because you said I'm taking his side or.
Nah, it's cool though.
whatever.
Yeah.
that you was giving them a pass.
Yeah.
Giving I'll be him the a first
But you're a fan? You're a fan more? I mean, outside of liking his music, sorry for cutting you off. Outside of liking his music, are you a personal fan to his?
Yeah, I like him
Okay.
as a person. He has high
Okay, no.
energy every time I meet him.
I think he's entertaining as well.
Yeah.
And I really genuinely think he's a good kid.
And I feel
gather
like
that.
through social media, you can connect with people. So as watching him every day do all his everyday shenanigans, I'm like partly connected to him. So it really, like this L.
What do we say about because this isn't his first time in trouble with the law with his legal problems before he was charged with the sexual performance of a minor on camera, something that he pled guilty to. You know, how does that factor in? So, you know, he's no stranger to the law in the courtroom and facing this. He's faced this before, though this one seems way more serious in terms of the time that he's facing. Does that factor in? Can you still be a fan of that? I know a lot of people who can't be a fan after those original charges. So I didn't mean to put you on. It's okay if you can. Listen, it's no judgment. You know what I mean?
I don't really know the details in that case that well to really hold an opinion about it, one. And then two, I would say that at the time I know he didn't have money to get proper representation in court for it. But I don't really know the details of it, so I don't really want to.
From what I've read, I'm not of I think there's been a lot of situations over the years where people may not have known everything. You know, the young lady was underage. Maybe, you know, I don't think most people are asking people's age at that point. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't at it. Yeah, we need you to sign off on this contract, prove how old you are, stuff like that. We all have kids up here. I can't be a fan of that, but I can say in growing up, we've all been in situations, not that situation, but we've been in situations where it's like, yo, the way it's playing out isn't exactly what it was. So I think, and another thing that she said, he didn't have the proper representation to communicate that point and to just, go ahead and shed light on those facts. So do I agree with what he did? Hell no. But it was a huge mistake on his part. He didn't have, it's even more reason not to be underneath the microscope because everybody's already on you because of this. And then he had other things that happened past that, like maybe another 3-4 run-ins after that. So all of this is the reason why I say it's so damn frustrating, because while I may not be the biggest fan of his music, I'm always rooting for kids trying to figure out a way to make money and take care of their family, their friends, the people, and build up some type of business. Unfortunately, it's not. Took some wrong turns on this.
What I will add to that, what they said is they've covered it. From the legal ramifications, he has a felony because of that case. And what that does also with the feds is that puts you in another category. So in all reality, he's not even looking at 10 years because he's looking at 10 years with no felony. If you got a felony and you get convicted, then that puts you in a category 2, which raises your level. So he's not even really, quite frankly, looking at even 10 years with it as it stands, just because of the felony from that case.
You know, it goes back. One of the things that I took from this kind of discussion is how much hip hop has changed through the years and how much the streets have changed through the years. What's acceptable, what's accepted, and the generational divide. Kevin, do you recognize this? Because you were out here in the era of when everything was brand new,
right?
You know, the crack era,
right, absolutely. When I fell, I was listening to Craig Mack and Biggie. Actually, I had a record company at the time, and we actually had just come from Jack the Rapper, and Snoop was being introduced as a new artist from the Deep Cover soundtrack. It was Craig Mack and Biggie, and I had a group, and we was all at Jack the Rapper in '94. And I went to jail that November, so I missed everything. I mean, when I came home, these things was established. So the energy was definitely different. It was a different time. And we sort of touched on some of that, but yeah, I definitely missed all that. But I don't have a problem with music where music is now. It seems like it's more in a more comfortable place, a more happy place, which I think is good culturally, and I think it's more encompassing with where music is now, because what was they labeling it, gangster rap or whatever that was? I think that's why music has been broadened, and there's such a mass appeal now, because the music is sort of a general kind of, it's a feel good kind of thing, So I don't,
Here's the thing that scares me, and I would love for you all to weigh in, is with the Tekashi situation. I feel like, first of all, a lot of rappers and rap artists aren't necessarily from the street or living that street life. We know that a lot of it is just entertainment or the person next to them and telling someone else's story. A majority of the fans by far aren't within that street life either. I get kind of scared seeing this play out, and there's real life consequences to these actions. There's real life consequences to these Instagram videos. It's not just Tekashi, where artists are pulling out all types of guns and basically incriminating themselves on camera for the sake of likes or to sell a record or to get a stream. And is it that they don't realize that there's real life consequences? We're seeing Tekashi face these real life consequences right now. That's the part that scares me, is that we're glorifying, it was bad when we were glorifying the streets in the 80s and 90s. We seen what happened, right? I think it's even worse now because I think we're with a generation that doesn't even know what the hell they're dealing with.
Well, I think with the when you talk about digital and you talk about social, right? Everything is clout right now. There's a lot of kids that are willing to go. The line is right here. There's kids all the way over there. Like, I'm gonna push this to the limit because I know I could get the most likes from that. There's a bigger need right now. I was having this conversation with Snoop of just OGs really putting their arm around kids and like, yo, look, like just really having these real conversations with them before it gets to be too late. The problem is some of these kids, they just don't care. You know, like they do not care. There's this alternative world, this alternative universe where this is real life here, where if you get pinched, it's gonna hurt. Over there, it's like, yo, I'm gonna blow your fucking arm off.
Well, we've seen, look, man, Boonk, who popular on IG, shot himself earlier this year and put it for the gram to see. Like, we're seeing these things, like, how far are you willing to go for a like or just a career in rap? Like, at what point is it like, you know what, I'm good. I'm just gonna, UPS is hiring. I'm cool. I don't need.
I think that the biggest thing is there shouldn't be a divide. I don't ever want it to be a divide. I think there shouldn't be like these old heads and these young heads and stuff. Because what happens with divide, everybody says, yo, I don't want to listen to that old shit. Take your Sergio Tacchini suit in the club and go over that way. It shouldn't be that.
Sergio Tacchini coming back, dog.
But it is coming back. It is coming back. He got that royal blue. If you're listening, you know, you might want to hit us up. But you don't want that divide. You want the kids to be able to listen because there's a lot of knowledge that can, you know, go ahead and provide a path where you can just sidestep a lot of pitfalls. But if kids aren't willing to listen, and if, you know, they don't have the right people around them, you're going to see more instances like this. Best believe this shit right here, this is an example.
Let me ask you a question then, because a lot of it, and now I want to go to you, a lot of it is the controversy that propels the music, right? Like, you're watching the show. In Tekashi's case, could he have been successful just putting out the music?
That's a great question.
Without the trolling?
I don't know. I'm gonna say this because I know a lot of talented artists, like a lot of talented artists who don't get any recognition. You know, I think Tekashi's trolling, all that he did on social media, all that online is what helped him get high. Like, let's look at the state of the music industry right now and our culture. Everybody, I know a lot of IG models who want to sing, who want to rap, who just try it on because that's just like the phenomenon. So, like he said, it's about clout. If you got clout, let me start rapping. So Tekashi got clout, and then, you know, his music followed. And think about what song got him hot. Gummo got him hot. He had rainbow hair. Marketing. It's like like you said, strategic. He's very strategic. He thought about it. He got the rainbow hair. You know, he's toting guns. Got a bunch of kids in Brooklyn. They record like this crazy music video. You know what I'm saying? It blows up just like Bobby Shmurda did. You know, like everything he did was thought about. So. Nah, if it wasn't for his marketing prior, I don't think his music would have been hot.
I think, Kev, did you have something to add?
No. I think everything they said is accurate.
I think Shmurda was different because even though it looked very street in the Shmurda video, like it was a dance that popped it off, right? Even before Kevin said, like, I don't even know if we listened to the lyrics. Even before we knew exactly what he was saying in the lyrics, it was like, oh, this is a dope song. And it wasn't until later that we found out all the stuff that
it was a confession.
Shmurda, what
you know what that reminded me of?
The song did have a lot.
It reminded me of Nelly on Country Grammar, where I'm going down, down, baby. And when you really figured out what that song was about, you just like, oh shit, they talking about guns and everything in this song. You know, it was one of those things, like when the hat flipped for Bobby Shmurda, you was like, oh, I like this shit.
Right. But hip hop, Kevin could have said, it's always been coded language, right? This is why we have slang.
Right.
Like, so it's always been coded. We've always hid, the medicine, the candy, or the other way around?
If you know, you know.
Right.
I'll be the first one to tell you, though, I wasn't that mad at Tekashi's trolling. I wasn't that mad. I thought that was really marketable. Sometimes I knew more about that than the songs, than the music that he had out
Most
there.
did.
That's true.
Yeah, I knew more about that. Like when he did the 50 Cent joint, when he was like, you know, he in the club joint.
No,
when he was upside down, like he was training. Like, come on, man, that was great.
But that's different from, suck my dick, bud.
But
it's a way different. You know, 50 and
what you said about the 50. I think if he did that, he would have been fine. I think the other thing got a little edgy and beyond what he should have been doing, just for his own safety. And sadly, the question may very well be, was this the better of the two evils, what happened to him? Because a lot of people saw his demise being one that had a finality to it. So, who knows?
All right, so last question. I just want to wrap and get everybody's last take. Again, with everything that he's facing and however it may turn out, now that I'll start with you again, the tough question: does his career survive? Does he still have a music career after this? Can he go on?
I think
after
at this point he solidified himself as a socialite. So even if when he comes out his music don't pop, people are still going to be interested in him and what he does. Even if he would have stopped when he was on probation making music and would have went about doing something else, I think we all still would have followed. Cardi B can stop rapping right now, and I'm still going to be like, dang, she on Good Morning America. Let me watch. Like, I'm going to watch.
Okay.
I don't think that it's I don't think it's going to work, because just like Kev said, right now, I think the lowest felony you could have is what, an E or F or something like that.
Yeah, but no, not in this instance. Like it carries a mandatory 10 years. First of all, right?
In this situation, he's been elevated. So he's probably looking more along that lines of 15, 20, something like that. They're still gathering a lot of, information. They're looking through from what I'm understanding, they have a hell of a lot of pictures and video.
But they haven't informed, the prosecution is saying now they have an informant.
A CI is involved. So when you talk about the music, I think that should be the last thing on his mind.
I agree.
The very last thing. He'll be lucky if he comes out and he has some type of money left where he can just kind of go back
Make it
into
all
society.
worth it. Not even all worth it. That's me misspeaking. It's nothing gonna be all worth it.
It's not gonna be worth
it. But I just like to see the kid get his freedom. I mean, because there was so many kids, like you said, his fans rooting for him, or and had he been successful, he would have been a role model and something, a blueprint for people to follow. And that might be one of the reasons why this happened as well. Like, he was widely popular,
I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate all y'all energy and all y'all opinions. Really want to put this panel together again to discuss this in an intelligent way, for the fans to see what's going on, and let people know what they're up against and what they're facing when in these situations. Like, it's entertainment and it's fun, but there's real life consequences. And I think we all have to be aware of these real life consequences. That's all we got for you this week. We definitely want to hear from you in the comments. Hit us up below, man. For the record, peace.